third is Suarez. Goodell comes running in. He's under it, makes the catch. Here's the throw to the plate. It's in the air. He is out! Cameron Rick hangs on! Oh, man, what a play! Deep to right field. Way up there and way second
Well, this should be a fairly positive episode because since it's been a while since we got together, but the Phillies, of course, got swept by the Mets in Citi Field because that's what happens. But they have come back since then and played pretty good ball overall. They took 3 out of 4 from the Braves. They went to Milwaukee, won 2 out of 3 there. Just won 2 out of 3 down in Miami. 2. Am I missing a series? No, that was it. No, there's only been 3 series since then. But so they're able to make up all the ground that they lost during that time. They lead the division by 7 games. We're going to get into what's coming up this week because the next 10 games will pretty much, the Phillies are making the playoffs, but the next 10 games will decide seeding and if this division is going to be a sweat for the next 3 weeks or not. But that task is going to get a little harder now because Trea Turner left the game today, ground ball, wild throw, but was safe, but just went right into the dugout. Turns out it's a hamstring strain. They don't know how severe yet. We're doing this Sunday night. And I mean, they were struggling offensively to get some length out of this lineup the way it was going. He's kind of been the mainstay at the top. This is pretty devastating if it's long term, and it just makes them getting that bye and having another week cushion all that more important.
Yeah, it sucks. They missed him obviously in 2024 last season for about 6 weeks.
Yeah, it was like all of May and 2 weeks of June, I think.
Yeah, so that's an injury that's. So there is some precedent. That's an injury early in the season where they might be a little more cautious. 6 weeks now would put us in NLCS territory in terms of what the scheduling looks like, even, borderline World Series territory. I tend to believe that given, it's not May through June, it's October. I tend to think that he'd be back. At some point, if they're in the wild card series, I don't think he'd play there, but maybe the back half of an NLDS or NLCS type thing. Whether he's 100% or not, I think he's a top 5 MVP guy there this year, easy. You and I have been pretty consistent in terms of not overreacting to Trea Turner not being Trea Turner fully in the first year and a half really of his contract, whereas a lot of people were panicking in terms of the swing decisions and the batting average being a little bit lower while he's leading the National League in batting average this year. He's been incredible. They've been able to not even tread water, like you said. They've had a really, really, really good 2 weeks without Zach Wheeler. And this isn't, downplaying how important Wheeler is to the team. We've seen what he's done in the playoffs and everything, but it's a little bit different replacing a guy who pitches every 5th day as opposed to your shortstop who's on pace for over 200 hits, just hit his 15th home run today, steals 30 bases with ease, has been playing, very, very, very good defense this year. He's really been doing everything for them. And I mean, there was a point in time this year where he carried the lineup for, a good month and a half, 2 months. Really the whole season he's been doing it, but he was kind of carrying them for, a stretch of time throughout the summer. So hopefully it's not too serious. Hopefully he can come back. And, the 6 weeks we saw last year where he was out, that was a little bit more precaution because it was early in the season. Hopefully the results of the MRI, I guess, are are positive. We should know more tomorrow. But, like you said, the next 10 games, really the first 4 and the last 3 of those 10 are what's going to make or break what seeding looks like, because it's 4 against the Mets, and then they end with 3 in Los Angeles of that 10-game stretch. So, obviously, I think we're 3 or 4 games up on the Dodgers right now for the second seed in the National League, and then, like you said, 7 up on the Mets for the division. So,
which is technically 6 because they have the tiebreaker. But yeah,
right. So, not to be like tread water, because obviously we kind of owe them some for what happened in Citi Field 2 weeks ago, but like split the 4 games against the Mets and you're in like really good shape going down the stretch. Like, just don't give them a window where, 1, they think they have a chance to win the division down the stretch, and 2, make the division close where you're fighting for the bye to the point where you have to do something and rush Trea Turner back from an injury. Like,
yeah,
at this point, like you said, they're going to make the playoffs. Seeding's the most important thing now. Without Wheeler, setting up your pitching and getting the bye is extremely important, but even more so, giving Turner extra time off where you don't even have to think about playing him. So, like, find a way to split. Obviously, Nola tomorrow should be interesting.
We'll get into that. We'll go game by game on that. But
he hasn't really given us like much. You and I were pretty adamant throughout the summer that we thought Nola was going to be fine. When
I know, we were very wrong.
He got back from the IL, and we could not have been more wrong. It is an adventure every time he goes to the mound.
I think it's because we kind of needed him to be good, as I said a lot. So I think we were just overly optimistic because it's what the team needed. So we just kind of believed it without seeing it.
Yeah, we were definitely trying to convince ourselves. But
yeah,
I know, like, I've only looked at Monday, and it's, McLean, who not only us, but has mowed everyone down since he's come up to the bigs. He's been, ridiculous. So
he's due for a bad start then.
Okay, Mr. Positive. That's a new one out of you. But
I know.
Yeah, like, I'm sure we'll talk about it because I know he hasn't been your favorite person lately, but this is a time where you really need Schwarber to stop messing around and end the bad stretch. I know he was 0 for 16 or 0 for 17 against the Mets at Citi Field. He hasn't really done anything since the 4 home run game, which was right after that. That was the Thursday after that Mets series. He still hasn't hit number 50 since then. So, like, if there's, I think the media has been pretty adamant in terms of, like, the MVP race, and the betting odds kind of reflect it between – I mean, it's Ohtani to lose. That's, a given at this point, but it was always, like, Ohtani and Schwarber. Those are the 2 names. Like, Schwarber's not going to win it, and, in my opinion, Turner has passed him up as the team's MVP.
Yeah, I was going to say, up until the 7th inning today, I honestly think Trea Turner was running second in NL MVP.
But, like, if Schwarber wants to kind of have that MVP moment that we, haven't seen in 2.5, 3 weeks, like, this is the series to do it. Like, start hitting again, get hot for the playoffs, and, you just lost your best player from the last 6 months. It's time to kind of wake up and forget the last 2 weeks and get hot going into the playoffs.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back a little bit. So today is September 7th. The NLDS starts October 4th. So that is exactly 28 days for Trea Turner. It's not a lot of time, but it's some time at least. If they have to play in the wild card round, that starts September 30th. So we're talking about, it's 5 days, but it's still something. And it's obviously games you're not playing where you're risking elimination without him. So not being in this wild card round, we talked about it a lot with Wheeler. It's even more important now because the guy that leads your team in at-bats, because he's the leadoff guy, is now gone. But yeah, this really does come down to Schwarber and Harper getting going. They're going to need to. They're going to have to hit for power. They're going to have to come through in clutch situations because honestly, Turner was in a lot of spots. What day was that? Gosh, my days are so mixed up. The Brewers game, I guess that was. I'm so messed up about that series because they had the off day in the middle of the series. So that was Thursday. That he had the clutch hit late in the game to put them ahead, and they won 2-0. But those two guys, like today in the ninth inning, both of them had a chance. Now, Schwarber did drive in a run on a single, and that would have tied the game had Stock got his bunt down. But like Harper, let's do something. You got to get going. Castellanos, it doesn't even play, so I don't know what to say about him. Bohm, like let's go.
Yeah,
I think he's cooked. The two of them are not going to be back here next year, and we could get into that later. I don't feel like making this about that, but just the two of them have been an absolute disaster. But what I want to get at is a couple guys that have been really good have been Bader and Marsh. So with Turner out, what do you do with the lineup? You can't really throw Marsh in that top three because then it's just three straight lefties and you're going to get in some serious trouble, especially we know Marsh is not very good against lefties. But as Harrison Bader leading off now, I don't know who else it can really beat. Now you can go like Stott, Bader, Harper, Schwarber. Like, do you want to do that? I'm thinking what is going to be the best course of action here. And then the second question is, who's coming up? And now I know that the real, it's probably gonna be Otto Kemp, but like people said, Aiden Miller, I doubt it. I also, something that hasn't really been touched on, he's not a really good shortstop. He has 20 errors this year, but like, that's kind of fallen under the radar, but it's true. I don't know. Like, could you bring him up and just be like, screw it, kid, 3 weeks, go get it. He brings that speed element that Turner has. I'm interested in who the call-up is because we know Sosa's good in short stretches, but I just get concerned about him playing every day. He does get exposed after a little bit.
Yeah, I think the 20 errors for Miller probably got swept under the rug because while he's adamant he's a shortstop, I don't think even from the moment he's been drafted, like I never viewed him as sticking at shortstop. And part of that's because you have, Trea Turner signed for 10 years. But the profile to me was never a shortstop profile. It was, a corner infield, like a third base or left field type of bat. But whatever, that's
an off-season talk again. But
I don't think that they'll go with him. And he brings the speed element, but I don't know if I really fully trust the on base profile to get on and use that speed. So I don't think that they'll go with him. As far as the lineup, it's tough because like you said earlier, the last month it's kind of been like a battle to get depth out of the lineup. Like, where does it come from outside of Turner, Schwarber, and Harper for all of August? And then all of a sudden they've kind of transitioned the platoon from, Castellanos is an everyday guy and we're going to rotate center and left to Bader's the center fielder. Marsh is the left fielder 80% of the time. And then we're going to throw the Kepler in right, in Castellanos and every now and then. So that's kind of been the platoon. And since Bader's been an everyday guy, he's been really good. He's kind of been having those clutch late inning hits that you were talking about, needing from Schwarber and Harper. So part of me is Turner's out, move Bader up into that spot. He can run. Obviously it's not the same kind of batted ball profile, on base percentage type of thing that Turner brings you, but it's a righty that gets on base, hits for some pop every now and then, can run a decent amount of the time. So I like that, but then your depth at the bottom of the lineup really takes a hit. So I don't really know what the right answer is. this schedule is not great coming up in terms of, some tough teams. So I think it's going to be a lot of plug and play. Like you said, I think it'll be Otto Kemp. So what does that look like? Does Stott move to shortstop? Does
I was
Sosa
thinking
play?
about that. Yeah.
Like, if you bring Otto Kemp up, great, but he's not a shortstop. So, does that mean you're just playing Sosa every day and carrying Kemp on the bench for, days Bohm needs off or Harper needs off or something? I don't know what that looks like, because Otto Kemp isn't a direct replacement to slide into Turner's position. Obviously, you have Sosa, which is great. He's a pretty good luxury as far as bench players go. But like you said, and we've talked about it a bunch on here, Sosa's great when he can play twice a week. But when he gets in these modes where, the first game that he normally plays pretty well. He'll come in, give you a spark, give you a double in the gap or a single or something. And then the next day he's feeling himself, and you could go up there and throw a pitch off the 400 level, and he's at least giving you a check swing on it. He just gets in those modes where when he sees one hit fall in the outfield, all of a sudden it's, there's no swing decision at all. It's I'm swinging until the ball hits the glove, because he just gets in those modes. So I don't know. There's not they might go with Aiden Miller, but I'd say there's a single-digit % chance that Aiden Miller's called up this week. So there's not really a direct replacement for the shortstop position, unless you're kind of getting wacky and moving Stott around, which I don't really prefer to do at this point.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the 40-man. Otto Kemp is the only infielder on the 40-man that's not in the majors.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be him. I don't even know who the hell Brewer Hicklin is, but he's on the 40-man. I have no idea who this person is. Where did he come from?
Yeah, I don't.
It looks like he played one game for Detroit. He's a center fielder. I don't even know who that is. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be Kemp unless they make a move. But this is just horrible timing, and with this Mets series coming up, and like you said, you just kind of want to go 2-2 here, because it keeps it at 7, and it takes 4 games off. 4 games away. So the Mets would only have 16 games to make up 7 then. So, makes it almost impossible. As we know, 7 and 17 has been done. But yeah, tomorrow, Nola. Man, that ERA is going close to 7. Holy hell. Wow.
Jordan Romano-esque.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. This is actually crazy. I didn't realize he's that bad. The first inning has been a struggle for him, as with Taijuan Walker. And I know I brought this up today. Do you have to consider an opener with these two guys? Because the first inning with both of them has just been an absolute disaster. The two of them cannot go a first inning without giving up 3 runs. Jose Alvarado sucks, by the way. But because he's not going to be on your playoff roster and there's no point in him having high leverage spots, should you be throwing him out there in the first inning of a couple of these games? I'm trying to think of things, but Walker and Nola are absolutely killing them, because it's 3-4-0 in the first inning every game.
Yeah, we've been talking about the Walker opener for a few years now. The first inning numbers, even kind of going back to his 20-win season, they were never good. Once he gets out of the first inning, if he got out of the first inning with no runs, normally you're in for a pretty decent game. Even today, he gave up 4 in the first, and then the Marlins finished with 5. He settled in after it, and I don't know if they do it. I'd prefer. I think Alvarado opened a few games for the Rays way back when he was on the Rays, because they were kind of the first ones that burst onto the scene with the opener.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it, but realistically, how many more starts do they each have? 2 or 3 each. So
Yeah, it's 3, I think.
Like, I don't know. I don't think they'll do it with Nola because you kind of need to figure him out in terms of he's going to have to pitch the first inning in a playoff. Like, relievers are too important in the playoffs to burn a valuable one in the first inning because Aaron Nola can't get outs. Like, it's not, if anything in the playoffs, if Nola gets an opener, it would probably be like Talon Walker, like we saw years ago where Noah Syndergaard got the first time through the lineup, and then you kind of went to the bullpen and threw guys out that way. Or against the Padres when Bailey Falter started the game, and then however many outs you could get, you kind of, picked, oh, we think we can get this guy, and all of a sudden Falter went, 3 innings. Like, Aaron Nola is too important to what they're going to have to do in the playoffs. Like, he's going to have to be at least competent if they're going to want to make a run. So I don't think they'll do it with him just because you kind of need to figure that out. You can't be like, oh, we really need to win these games in September, so let's skip Nola's first time through the good hitters in the lineup. Like, okay, that's great. And now all of a sudden you get him in a playoff game and he has to face Freeman, Ohtani. I don't even know if Mookie Betts still hits in the top 3 for the Dodgers because he's been pretty average this year, but whatever. Freeman and Ohtani for sure. But, Nola hasn't faced the top 3 in a lineup in a month and a half because you're using an opener.
Right.
Walker, that's a different story because you're not really factoring him, at least in my opinion, you're not factoring him into the playoff rotation. So what he does against the top 3 hitters in a September start, you're not really building a foundation for anything. So, Walker, I wouldn't hate it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did it. But Nola, at this point, the dude just needs a routine, and he needs to get some confidence back. I don't think any more confidence could be taken away. So a few more first-inning home runs isn't really going to do anything, in my opinion. But
we'll
he
see
just needs
tomorrow.
some sort of foundation that he could build off of because they're going to need him to pitch first innings in the playoffs in a month if they want to go on a run.
Yeah, so there's an added element to this now, and that's Walker Buehler. The things with him, like, he was awful this year, and the Red Sox are in a playoff race, so them releasing him, this wasn't like the Rockies releasing him, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
similar to the Tim Mesa move that the Phillies were able to get their hands on him, which having him and Lou Trevino, I was kind of pounding my fist about this before we did the last episode, but the 2 of them over Ross and Romano is really nice. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think the 2 of them are gonna come in here and be Madsen and Lidge in 08, but they're definitely upgrades over 2 dudes who ERAs were pushing 7. So happy with that. But Walker Buehler got the last 3 outs of the World Series last year. He didn't really start, but it's like the numbers are so bad. But a guy like him, if you get him back in October, does a change of scenery? Does something just click? It's a little different. But remember when the Tigers traded Verlander to the Astros, a lot of people thought he was cooked. Like, he was having a really bad year, and it was a waiver trade. It was late. It was August, and he just comes to Houston and clicks. And he's now still going, and we're almost 8 years later from that move, and he's still going. So, could Walker Buehler have that click moment where he gets a change of scenery and he's back in the playoffs where he excelled last year? It's low risk, high reward. I don't know if you're really counting on him right now, but if this hits, like, it totally changes the dynamic with everything that's gone on with this pitching staff. Because as I mentioned, we're going on Zach Wheeler, Jose Alvarado, and Andrew Painter are not going to throw a pitch for you in the playoffs. And that is not something we envisioned happening at the beginning of the year. So the wild cardness of Walker Buehler here is intriguing, but I don't think you count on it right now.
No, I don't think count on. You definitely aren't going in factoring him into, the rotation or even like right away. I think he's starting the 12th, the first game in Kansas City.
Yes. It's home, but yeah, it's the first one against
Kansas City. Yeah. But I guess we can kind of look at an example that we've seen the last few years. Right, for us, and then one across baseball. Like Nate Eovaldi's a really good regular season pitcher for sure, but the minute he gets into a playoff atmosphere, he just turns into a demon that steps it up a notch. And like this guy could throw 150 pitches and not lose anything. Like he is just a playoff monster. Some guys just have that switch that kind of flips when you get in the playoffs. And we've kind of seen it firsthand. Like Ranger Suarez has had really, really, really bad second halves to the seasons as he's gotten tired, as he's kind of fought injuries and stuff. And then he gets in the playoffs. And yeah, the start against the Mets last year in the NLDS, the game, the clincher, it wasn't great, but he tightroped out of a lot of jams and still got them through 4 or 5 innings without giving up a run. Like he is another guy who kind of snaps into it after we see him have bad stretches throughout the season. The minute the playoffs hit, he tight ropes out a lot of jams, throws really well, and gives you quality innings. Like Walker Buehler has a career 3.05 ERA in the playoffs. There's been some moments. One that kind of sticks out, like the video that you see all the time with the Acuna grand slam, where he clearly threw ball 4 to walk in a run, and then the next pitch Acuna put it 15 rows deep. But like other than that, he has a career 3.05 ERA in the playoffs. So like you were saying, he might just like get into that element where it's playoff. He might just be like a big game pitcher. And the Red Sox tried different things. They gave him a lot of money. They tried moving him to the bullpen, and it didn't work, so they cut him. Andrew Bailey's normally, known for being pretty good with pitchers, but I feel like Caleb Cotham has that same reputation in terms of having a good effect on pitchers. He's pretty good at in terms of getting them to work with some sort of cutter sweeper combo. I don't know Walker Buehler's, pitch arsenal off the top of my head, but moving things side to side is normally, a strong suit of Caleb Cotham. So his first start in AAA was pretty good. He gave up a home run to his first batter, and then I think he went 5 innings, and that was the only run he gave up. I think he gave up 2 more hits. Not a lot of pitches. The numbers looked pretty good. So I'm excited to see what he could do. It goes back to what we were saying with Nola. Like, you need a righty to perform in some capacity, and without Wheeler, and like you said, going into the season, I think we all expected Painter to throw some kind of meaningful innings for this team, and he's obviously not going to do that. So you're going to have to piecemeal together what contributions you get from righties. Right now, for me personally, there's not really a righty on the team that I fully trust other than Duran. Kerkering has not been great. Nola, obviously, ERA close to 7. And, you don't really know what you're going to get from them. And I don't think we're really, eager to say, oh, because of that, Taijuan Walker has to be in the rotation at some point in the playoffs. So Walker Buehler has kind of found himself in the middle of that meme where, just got hired and all of a sudden I'm the most important person at work. I don't think he's the most important, but he's pretty critical in terms of what they want to do. And like you said, it's at this point, you're past the trade deadline, so you can't really add guys that way. So getting him on the waiver wire, it's low risk, very high reward because he has that pedigree, and there's nothing else you could do aside from go get him. So on paper, it's the right move. They made the right move doing it. They made the right move getting Lou Trevino. Even Phil Bickford can pitch if they called him up because he's been in the organization. So, you have better names in-house than the Joe Ross, Jordan Romano mold. So, they've done the right things on paper all throughout the year. So now you just kind of have to hope that the execution pays off. And I'm confident, and now this could be another Nola situation where I'm confident Nola's going to be good after the IL. But I'm fairly confident that Walker Buehler will work out.
Yeah, so the NLDS is interesting because there's that extra off day, so you need 3 pitchers. I don't see this really becoming a huge issue until if they made the CS, because you could pretty much just go Sanchez, Ranger, some cluster bullpen game of Walker Buehler, Aaron Nola, Luzardo, Trevino. Everyone gets an inning in there, and then go Sanchez, Suarez again. So one game would be a little messy, but I think you got the pieces to at least scrap through one bullpen game if needed. So I don't see this being a huge issue in the DS. When you get to the CS, and you might need at least 2, if not 3, starts from guys not named Sanchez and Ranger is when this gets a little dicey. So we'll worry about that if hopefully the situation does arise where they get that far. But it is going to be something to watch with that. But yeah, let's get into this Mets series. Obviously super important. So as you mentioned, tomorrow's not looking good on paper. McLean versus Nola, the ERAs are almost a 6-run difference. Pretty brutal. Yeah. So McLean has not suffered a loss yet. Just pretty much ran through it. Man, have you ever seen the numbers that some of these Mets players have against Nola?
I can imagine. I mean, Alonso's probably through the roof.
Yeah, Alonso's OPS is over 1,000 with 5 home runs. Lindor's not that good against him, which is interesting. But McNeil's hit 326 off of him.
Marte kills him.
Yeah, not great. So tomorrow's going to be ugly, especially with this Trea Turner situation. They're going to be feeling out the new lineup, so not great. The next game may be gettable. Ranger versus Manaea. I think you got to win. You got to win that game.
Manaea turns into prime Sandy Koufax every time he pitches against the Phillies. Since that Padres series in the playoffs, it's pretty ridiculous that Manaea has a 5.6 ERA, but against us, it's like he's like, I don't know, like prime Hal Newhouser, whatever dominant lefty you could think of. Manaea has every ounce of like Randy Johnson, Koufax, like everybody just thrown into one. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he destroys Real Muto. Harper has good numbers off of him. Castellanos has really good numbers off of him. Of course, Turner does. Doesn't really matter right now. But so that's game 2. Game 3, we got Clay Holmes versus Sanchez.
That's the must win. Clay Holmes has not been good in a few months. That is one you have to get.
Yeah. So the way I'm looking at this is, and then the fourth game is Peterson, who destroys this freaking team too. And it's TBD for the Phillies right now. I think that's supposed to be Luzardo. Right? Yeah. So Luzardo's pitched better lately.
He pitches better at home too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, so the way I'm looking at this is I don't think tomorrow's going to go well. If tomorrow goes well, my expectations for this series drastically changes. But I think you got to try to get those middle 2. And then that Thursday game, you can kind of go out there, balls to the wall and try to take the series. But it's not going to kill you if you lose that game. So I'm just really looking to take those middle 2 at the very least. And then obviously, if you can get 3 in this series, the division is over. They're not coming back from 9 with 16 to play. So you can put a fork in the division, and then you start, focusing on the Dodgers and going up against them and making sure that, one, you win that series against them, so you hold that tiebreaker, which gives you another de facto game up on them. But you're just trying to stack wins after that and stay one game ahead of the Dodgers. So big series. I don't know. I want to say take 3, but it really just feels like you want to get this split and just keep going.
Yeah, so this is going to sound really weird because I've spent all episode talking about how important Nola is and how they have to get him some foundation.
Yeah.
But if he if it's one of those games where like he strings them along tomorrow and gives up like if he's gonna give up the home runs, give them up in the first and the second, where you're not going out there blowing Strom and This is crazy to say, but blowing Banks, which if gun to my head in March, I never thought I'd be saying that, but like blowing Strom, Banks, Duran, Kirkring, like we just talked about all the matchups. Like obviously name value, Aaron Nola, for the last decade, that's a game you win. But this year, it's not really a game that you win. Okay, fine, whatever. Tuesday, Manaea, not great on paper. Ranger, pretty good on paper. Has been pitching better lately after a rough stretch. That's very winnable. Wednesday's the winnable one, in my opinion, with Sanchez and Holmes. Like, I don't want Noah to string them along and then, we're up 2-0, and then boom, he gives up, a 3-run homer in the sixth. And all of a sudden, you're using all those bullpen arms and you don't have them for the next two games that are, more winnable on paper, in my opinion. And you're kind of burning those guys, one, in a series that's very important with more winnable games on deck, but also at the beginning of the 10-game stretch that we talked about, the most important ones being this series and the end of it. Like, if tomorrow gets to a point where they're using really, really, really important bullpen arms, and like, if you have the chance to win, obviously I'm not saying save Duran.
Right.
But if Nola is going to blow up, like we've seen him do over the years, and which we've seen him do a lot this year, do it in the first inning or the second inning before the Phillies take like a 2-0 lead into the seventh. Because then you're behind the 8 ball and you're asking Ranger and Sanchez to go like 7 innings, and then you're trying to, pick your spots with these bullpen guys to win a series. Like, I want Nola to be either really dominant or holy hell, give me like Edmundo Sosa pitching in the 7th inning bad. Like I don't need an in-between start. I need dominance or terrible.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's interesting to say it out loud, but it makes sense. Look, the dude needs to have a good start. It's time.
Right. I'd prefer the dominance part, but Clay Holmes is a lot more gettable than Nolan McLean to me right now.
Yeah, and I mean, but like at the same time, like as I said, it totally changes the dynamic of this series if he comes out and can win this game tomorrow.
Yeah. So if you can win the first game when we're saying a split is perfect, you give yourself 3 more games to get 1, you're in a great spot.
Yeah. So it means a lot that he does come out, and you don't want also if they get wrecked tomorrow, it comes back to they can't beat the Mets. They get in their heads. You don't want that to happen. I give Taijuan Walker some props. The first inning today was a disaster, but he was able to string them through 6 and saved some guys that they're going to need this week. So, they lost the game today. It was partially his fault for how bad he was early on, but, still did enough to put them in a spot where they could have won this game and then saved some arms for this week, which was good. So, and props there.
Like with the Mets.
And thank God he doesn't pitch in this series.
Yes. But like with the Mets too, like I think, and I know like he's driven you crazy this year, and I'd prefer to go this 4-game series without seeing bright orange spikes and wrist guards on him. But like I think I have to believe that there's some sort of competitive edge in the clubhouse that they just got punked in New York 2 weeks ago. And now they have 4 games at home to, like you say, kind of ice the division. If you win 2, you're in a super great spot. If you win 3, it's over. Like if you win 3 out of 4, it is signed, done, sealed, delivered. Everything in the division is over. Like I have to believe that there's some, even without Turner, like there's got to be some sort of competitive edge that is driving these dudes nuts, that their rival, like you walked into their stadium with a chance to put the division away 2 weeks ago and you lead an egg. And then you got
one win in that series would have put it away.
And I don't want to say you got lucky enough because they've played really good baseball over the last 2 weeks. They handled Milwaukee. They handled Atlanta with relative ease in the series that everyone thought was, a potential letdown, a bad Atlanta team right after you just got punked. They handled those first 3 games, especially the first one.
Should have swept that series.
Hanging 19 right after you got swept. Like, that showed me that, they're not completely dead. It might have just been a blip in the radar. City Field, House of Horrors, whatever. And then you beat the best team in baseball at their stadium, which also realistically probably should have been a sweep. And then you handled Miami, where you've never played well over the last, few years with this core dating back to the pandemic. And now, you've lost no ground since you've been punked. You've been fortunate enough to be in the exact same spot you were 2 weeks ago, and you have a chance to put it away again at home. I have to think that there's some sort of competitive fight that they're pissed off about what happened, and they'll show up for at least 2 of the games and win 2 and split and move on.
Yeah, and, it comes down to Schwarber and Harper showing up now, especially without Turner. I mean, Schwarber's not homered in almost 2 weeks now, and Harper has from 2019 to 2023, this was a guy that just always seemed to come through in the big spot. The amount of go-ahead and tying home runs he hit in the 9th inning of games in 2023, a lot of them are unremembered because I swear Craig Kimbrell blew every single one of them. Literally, I think 3 or 4 of them. So, that's kind of flown on the radar, but you just haven't seen that yet. And, I talk about this, and you could say whatever, they win a lot of games, they're up late, so maybe it's not a big deal. They haven't hit a walk-off home run since June of 2023. At some point, that becomes a mental toughness thing. How can you not literally do that? There does seem like there's sometimes where it's been packed in the 9th inning of games when they had a chance to go ahead and steal a win when it looked like they were down. A lot of times they've just been packing it in, and I'd like to see that change this week. If you can get to Diaz and hit a home run off of him, freaking do it. I want to see some kind of spark, and I know it doesn't help that your leadoff guy, who kind of is that spark with his speed and his high average, is not going to be there, but someone has got to fill the void, and it's got to be Harper.
Yeah, no, I agree. They got to show up. They're always talked about, being the leaders. There was a lot of coach speak after the series against the Mets about how they weren't worried, and it was just a normal series for them in terms of significance. So I don't know. Well, they said all the typical cliches, and they've backed it up in the last 2 weeks in terms of not folding when they easily could have. They've kind of been in a stretch where when they win, the Mets win, and when they lose, the Mets lose the last 4 or 5 days, which is fine. But obviously you can't do that this week because you're playing each other. So this will tell us a lot. Losing your best player right into the biggest 4-game series of the year. So this will tell us a lot in terms of where they are mental wise, and how the next month is going to go, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. All right, so we'll be back probably around that Dodger series. We'll see how this next week goes. We'll see the extent of the Trea Turner injury. The fact he walked right off wasn't great, but also in his post-game presser, he's not I feel destroyed. He's it's a little sore right now. So holding out some optimism on that, where he wasn't on crutches or anything. So we'll see what goes on there, but we'll be back sometime next week to see what has transpired in this Mets series.